to the 60s and 70s horror film and fashion series. If you're new here, my name's Ashley, and I'm a lover of all things 60s and 70s. The fashion, the horror movies, movies in general, TV, music, all things in between, just not the values. So if you're into that sort of thing, stick around. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the most iconic horror films of all time, considered one of the scariest horror films of all time as well, and it is The Exorcist. Made in 1973, it's one of the horror films known by pretty much everyone and considered one of the scariest. It was lightly based on a novel by William Peter Blatty, and the novel was lightly based on a true story of an exorcism that took place in Maryland. The story is based around a boy, not a girl. He was 14 years old when the event happened. It was said that he was playing with a Ouija board and then the rest ensued. Very much similar to what happened in the film. And you can absolutely go on a rabbit hole on that whole true story of the exorcism. There's tons of articles, there's tons of videos on it. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out. And it might be something that I feature in my true story series of the 60s and 70s. Now, let's get back to the film. The movie actually follows a demonic possession of a young girl named Reagan and the attempt to rescue her through an exorcism by two Catholic priests. It was actually the first horror film to be nominated for an Academy Award of Best Picture, as well as nine others. So that was a huge deal because before horror was really considered very kind of like B-rated movies. It wasn't really taken seriously in the worlds of the Academy. And so for this movie to be something that big, it was huge for the horror genre. Now, the film did cause a lot of controversy though because of its religious content and was heightened by increasing reports of requests for exorcisms and strange behavior at cinema viewings. People were running out of the cinema scared to death. They were getting sick, and just people were, just freaking out over this movie. It was like such a huge deal. It was so different than any other horror movie that had really come out before. And the subject matter really kind of hit home for some people because, again, they brought in that religious element, and religion was truly real to people and is real to people. And so when you bring that into the forefront of a horror movie, that good versus evil, people get a little freaked out. It really had a chokehold of the world in 1973. And it really was the 70s, a time with horror where satanic themes were really dominant. Think The Omen, and in the late 60s, Rosemary's Baby. So people were really intrigued by this element of horror. Now, the film itself not only was controversial, but also had a lot of rumors around it. There were a lot of rumors that there was a curse based, around the making of this movie. Linda Blair got extremely hurt in the scene where she was slamming against the bed. She had a back injury that she still has now. There was a fire in the bedroom that they used to film. There was a lot of mystique that surrounded this set. And so that's another rabbit hole you can go down that really brought another element to the story of The Exorcist. And I think that also added to the scare factor of when it came out in 1973. People were generally creeped out by the movie itself and the surrounding stories around it. Now, what we do on this series is we go over the kind of peak top moments in the film that stuck out to me. And then, of course, we go over the fashion. And you're probably thinking, Ashley, the fashion in The Exorcist, it's mostly Reagan's nightgown. No, 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 no. I'm not even talking about Reagan. I'm talking about the mom in the film, Chris McNeil. She has the most iconic 70s fashion in this film. Now, if you want to talk about Reagan, Reagan actually has a really good fashion in The Exorcist too, even though the film is not great. Great fashion in that movie. So if you're looking for more of a Reagan fashion review, that might have to come in another video. Sorry. So let's check out the peak moments in The Exorcist. First and foremost, the first scene that really is iconic to me, and that is just a really generally creepy and really get you invested in the movie. Like this is gonna be like crazy. This is gonna be like a different kind of horror movie is the stairs scene. Now, I think this really gets the movie moving, this scene, because everything before that, it is very like it's not that exciting. Especially that beginning opener that really kind of describes the story of the demon a little bit. That's like, I always forget that's a part of the movie. I don't know why, but I'm always like, oh yeah, this happens in the beginning. And if you know, you know, it's the part where they're like digging for artifacts and, that part. I get its backstory, but it's also just like it definitely, if you like turn that on and start the movie, you might, not knowing, if you didn't know the movie at all, you might just shut it off, to be honest. But luckily enough, I went in The Exorcist knowing a little bit about it because I had a dad that was really into movies and that introduced me to a lot of movies. And I honestly stumbled upon it myself. And I think like my sister really enjoyed the movie. So it was something that I had heard about and knew going in what the topic was about. So I was already intrigued. So I didn't shut it off. Just a little footnote there. Now, the stair scene. So, the reason I chose this scene is I do think it's iconic to the movie itself, and it really starts the ripple effect of the movie itself. Now, what's happening is Chris McNeil is an actress and she knows a lot of people, and a lot of people are in town for this film that she's filming. So she has this big party and she invites a lot of people from the area, but also people that are involved with the film. And Reagan is sent upstairs to go to bed. Now, the next event is they're all kind of singing around the piano, and Reagan comes downstairs. She's kind of very, when she comes downstairs, she's kind of, you can tell something's off. And she walks into this room full of people and just stands there, kind of like very deadpan, and she urinates on the rug. And then she says, "You're all gonna die up there," or something along those lines. And the way she says it is just monotone and creepy. The whole scene itself is unsettling. I think that's the really big thing. And it's like, what is gonna happen? And what is wrong with this little girl? And you just see the stunned look on the people's faces, not really knowing what to say or do. And also the look on the mom's face, I like not of embarrassment, but of like, I don't know. I don't really know how to react to this. And I think one thing's for sure, the acting in this film is phenomenal. Like for such a young girl to play a part like this, number one, amazing. And then the way that like the character Chris McNeil is played is just like she does such a great job of just showing the range of emotion she has to show at her child in such like distress and not really knowing what to do. And so she ends up taking Reagan upstairs, but it's just a really iconic scene that kind of sets the tone for what is about to happen, like kind of like the big ripple effect that's going to happen in later on in the movie. So I know for me, that's one scene I clearly remember watching the first time of being like, that's unsettling. It just creeps you out. It's an unsettling thing that happens. The next one, and it was so hard to pick, guys, the like peak moments in this film because there's so many good ones. There's like so many. It's like crazy. I feel like I need to do an honorable mention. But the next one that is very iconic and ingrained in me, but also too was really for the time, like such good like special effects. I felt maybe it's just me being younger, but even rewatching it, I'm like, that's pretty dang good. The like I believe housekeeper or nanny is like, I need to show you something to the mom. And they go up to Reagan's room and they pull up her like nightgown or shirt, and in her stomach is like from the inside written like help me. And just the way it's filmed and how you can see their breath in the room because it's so cold in the room. And this is a point where she's pretty possessed at this point, but it's showcasing that like Reagan is still there and like she needs help. Like this is not, and she's taken her to doctors and they think it's like a psychiatric thing, but this is more than she realizes. And so this is like kind of that turning point in the story where maybe you thought like maybe it is something psychological, maybe something's going on there. But now you realize like this is a lot more than I think Chris realizes she can handle. Like it's basically out of she needs help and it needs to be some sort of alternative. And it's a big, like, kind of like turning point in the movie, but also a very memorable part. I remember seeing that specifically too when I was younger and being like, whoa, like that's intense. Like she's inside there. Like she needs, like, whoa. And like, how did they do that? And it was just so well done that it again like it was definitely very unsettling and it creeped you out. It gave you kind of the heebie-jeebies a little bit. The next one is during the exorcism. So that, I mean, the whole thing is like crazy, creeps you out, surprises around every corner. And just the effects, the special effects they did were just insane. And I think one of the more standout points is when she is talking in all these different languages and she's talking in the priest um Damien Karras's mother's voice and really trying to like trick them and play a little game with them and like the way she talks.
In time, mirabile dictu, don't you agree? You speak Latin?
And the voice itself, it is like unsettling. It is crazy unsettling. And it just hits you in a place that I think no other horror movie hits you. And again, it goes back to that religious aspect of it, of like good and evil. And, if you are at all religious, you learn, there's God and there's the devil, and the devil is pure evil. And the fact that, you know, they're these priests who are good are battling this evil is just, it can be kind of scary for people that are grew up religious, are religious, know about religion. It's like, oh man, is this really like, this is really a thing? Like, wow, like that's something that kind of like is implanted in your brain and it blows your mind a little bit. You're just like, wow, now I'm like, oh, like this like, could this really happen? Like, this is like a little crazy. And I think that's why it's so unsettling with her speaking in Latin and all of these things and just the voice itself and the visuals in this movie are extremely eerie. And they do something in the movie that not a lot of people realize on the first watch. And you really have to dissect the movie and maybe slow it down a little bit to see certain things. But they do this thing where in certain scenes, you see the demon. And it's in certain scenes when the lights are flickering in your house, you'll see it. And if you look this up, it's a whole rabbit hole, but they do this like kind of almost subliminal thing. It's kind of insane. And I didn't know this like the first watch. And it took me a couple watches to kind of like see this and also do a little research to be like, wow, they were really brilliant in the way that they shot this and made it so eerie and so unforgettable that it truly was a whole new way of showcasing the horror genre. Now, the next are kind of in a similar area of the movie during the exorcism is when Reagan is basically kind of like left alone with the older priests. Damien Karras, the younger priest, comes in and realizes that Reagan has killed him. And she's doing this like really like creepy gnarly laugh that's like like it's like again unsettling, like it's like ugh. And you can just like watching this, the range of emotions you go through is like insane because you're like, oh my God, like that happened. Then you're like, oh man, like I feel for this priest. Then you're like, oh my gosh, the little girl like did that. Like, oh, and then you're like, get her, get her. Like you get kind of angry. And it's just those are all the emotions that probably like Damien feels at that time. Like so many different things come to his mind. And that really leads up to the moment that's like the climax of the movie where he just gets all those emotions so built up that he like shakes her and he's like, take me. If you want to take someone, take me. And you're just like, oh my God, he's gonna like hurt this little girl. But what ends up happening is the demon jumps into him. And at this point, he doesn't know what to do because he kind of like being kind of engrossed in that he wants to hurt the little girl now and he's like fighting it from the inside and he ends up jumping out the window and killing himself. And it's just such a wild scene. It's such a wild scene filled with so many emotions and such a good climax to the movie. And you're like, what just happened? Because it does happen rather quickly. And you realize the two priests are now dead, and this little girl is just like shook, like in a corner, is like crying and is like, what just happened? Like, what was everything that went down? And that last scene where Reagan is coming out of the house with her mom, and she's kind of like better, but her face is all like cut up, scarred. And the priest does come by to check in, and Reagan kisses him on the cheek. And it's just like a moment where you're like, wow, like, whew. And it ends there. It ends there. And yes, they did make a part two, but we're not talking about that today. But I, again, think it would be great if they just ended it there. Like, I think that would have been brilliant because I mean, it was a great way that they packaged the whole movie up, to be honest. The second one wasn't great. Like it wasn't. The fashion is really good, like iconic, but the movie itself isn't, great. But what, second movie is, it's really hard when you make such a great horror film to go in and do another one. And are there some exceptions to the rule? 100%. But a lot of the time, when that second horror movie comes out, it isn't. It doesn't live up to that standard because it's already kind of been done. And so you have to be very crafty and be, you just it's hard to do. It's hard to do, especially with horror movies. And sometimes they just get silly over time, which can be fun, but it's also kind of like when you have such a big horror movie that's like award winning and nominated and just a movie that really is iconic on its own. It's like leave it where it is. Like leave it alone and let it shine. But to me, those were really the peak moments in the film. But now let's talk about my favorite, the fashion. This film was in 1973. And what was the fashion like then? Well, the fashion in 1973 was a little bit of a mixture. It was patterns in a shift towards relaxed, individualized styles like denim, platform shoes, and flared bell bottoms. Some key trends were bohemian looks, patchwork, and crochet for women. A lot of bell bottoms were really big in this time, and you see that showcased in this movie. The bell bottoms mixed with like a relaxed style is something that you do see throughout the film, mainly by the like mom, Chris McNeil. And that's really who we're going to showcase today. And I think a lot of people, when I told them I was doing The Exorcist, they were just like, what fashion? Nightgowns? Like Reagan's dirty nightgowns? And I'm like, no, 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 no. I think a lot of people don't look at the other people in the film. Like, and I get it because the film is like centered around Reagan. But there is a really great visual of like early 70s fashion in this film that I absolutely adore. Now, Chris McNeil, she is the mom who, yet always distressed, always a mess, always in a predicament in this movie, always looks fashionable, always looks great. Even when she looks beat up and worn down, her outfits are great. Like, and I know, like, you're like, Ashley, why are you like looking at the outfits while all this crazy stuff's happening? If you like fashion, that's what you do, Like, it's just what you do. So the first one that I'm gonna kind of like focus in on, or peak fashion moment of Chris McNeil, is the walking scene. It's in the very beginning of the movie. She's walking home from work and she's in a beret and sweater, and the beret and sweater match. She has a turtleneck on and high-waisted pants. Absolutely adore this outfit. She does have bell bottoms on, but you know, I love a beret. So I was here for it. And I love how it matched, but yet it was casual and laid back. I think this is the perfect fall 70s look. And honestly, I really like love her haircut. It's kind of a Dorothy Hamill haircut, but I dig it. I think that haircut is iconic. And I don't know, I just really appreciate it. And you just gotta appreciate those geometric cuts of the late 60s, early 70s. Then the party that she has. I absolutely adore this fancy dress she's wearing. I like that it has a turtleneck, and that it has like a little bit of like sheerness. There's a lot of sparkle. This is also the scene where the bed is like shaking and she goes in to like kind of check on her. I love this look. It, yes, is a very fancy look, but it's a great example of what evening wear looks like in the early 70s. Next up is where Chris McNeil is in distress. She doesn't know where to turn, so she's turning to the priests, and she's all banged up from her experience with Reagan, being possessed, and she's wearing a handkerchief over her head, tied up, and then she's wearing these big sunglasses and this epic like trench coat type coat. And I love it. I love this look. And I think it really for me is not the coat at all. It is the handkerchief around and the big sunglasses. I love that. Like I love that. And it was a really big look. Um Really like the handkerchief around the head was really big in the early 60s, but it still resonated throughout the 60s and into the early 70s. And I love this look for like maybe you're out and you got the top of the car down. You know, like that's like a perfect look. Or you're out and you just kind of want to be discreet. I love it. To me, it kind of does scream like, look at me, but I kind of like that. But I love a good pair of like oversized sunglasses. And I have short hair, so sometimes it looks a little wild. So I love the idea of wearing a handkerchief over your head. I think it's great. I think it's classy and chic. Then, of course, I do want to feature one of Chris McNeil's nightgowns. It is super, super cute. And if you're new here, welcome. I actually really enjoy 60s and 70s nightgowns and nightgown sets where they have the nightgown and the matching house coat to go with it and matching house coat to go with it. And so I absolutely adored this one nightgown that she is wearing. It is almost like a halter top type nightgown. It ties like around the neck and it's pink and it kind of goes in like this. And I love that. I love that it ties and goes like this. How like freeing and relaxing is that? Love it. And I love the color. I love a good like pink nightgown. There's just something about it that's girly and fun. Really, in the movie itself, Chris has a really relaxed look most of the time because it is a lot being showcased when she's at her home. But a lot of bell bottoms and a lot of turtlenecks, which are key staples in the 70s and in the late 60s, mid to late 60s. Now, Reagan, obviously, she's mostly in the nightgown most of the time. Where you're going to see great Reagan fashion, though, is The Exorcist too. She has this beautiful, like, white with bell sleeves dress at one point in The Exorcist too. That's like beautiful, very like hippie chic. And she also has another dress where it kind of goes, it's halter wise. It goes and ties around this way around your neck. It has a little bit of a pattern on it, and she has this big, like, fluffy hat that she wears with it when she's going to the doctor. Another iconic look. So, if you want more Reagan fashion, go watch The Exorcist 2. It's pretty much the most enjoyment you're gonna get out of that movie because the movie itself, it's just the plot isn't great. It's fun to watch for sure, but just doesn't hold up to the first Exorcist movie. It just doesn't. It doesn't have that same effect. But great fashion on Reagan for sure. Now, overall, this is an iconic movie, and what I love is not only it's one of the greatest horror films ever made, and I will stand by that statement, but also it really shows peak like fashion, realistic fashion in the early 70s, which I thoroughly enjoy and, take note and make wish lists off of some of Chris McNeil's fabulous outfits. So if that's something you're into, definitely give it a watch or maybe even a rewatch. Now, I do want to say if you like this video, you'll like my other 60s and 70s horror films and fashion videos. So click the subscribe button. And also, if you like this video, share and like it. So that way, you could share the wealth with your friends. Thank you for watching. And until next time, I'll see you.